Have you ever had someone in your life just disappear? One day they're there, and the next, it's just silence. Today, we're going to dig into the quiet and honestly, the often misunderstood science behind why people cut others off. Let's pull back the curtain on the story behind the silence.
It's a question that can just wreck your head, right? It leaves you feeling confused, hurt, and desperate for answers. This sudden silence, what we often call ghosting, feels like a really loud, aggressive statement. But what if it's not what it seems at all? What if what we're seeing is just the very last page of a much, much longer story?
Okay, so the first thing we really have to understand is that these endings are almost never actually sudden. What we see as the main event is really just the final, visible result of a long, hidden process, a deep imbalance that's been building up for months or maybe even years.
And this, right here, is such a critical shift in perspective. That moment of silence, that's not the opening chapter of some new conflict. Nope, it's the final, signed-off page of the old one. The real story, the one that truly matters, was happening quietly in all the moments that led up to this. So at the very heart of this whole thing is something called emotional imbalance. You can think of it like a shared bank account. One person is constantly making deposits, putting in the effort, the energy, the support, while the other person is pretty much just making withdrawals. It becomes this one-way street of care. And this imbalance naturally creates two roles. On one side, you've got the overgiver, who is always putting in the work, always trying to keep things going. And as you can imagine, they end up feeling totally drained and unappreciated. And on the other side, the overtaker. Now, they aren't always malicious. A lot of the time, they might just be completely unaware of how one-sided things are, and they just take the connection for granted. So what happens when this dynamic just keeps going and going completely unchecked? Well, eventually the overgiver hits a wall, a breaking point. We're talking about the point of total exhaustion, where that emotional well just runs completely dry. You can actually see a pretty clear path to how this happens. It all starts with that sustained imbalance we talked about. This creates what you could call a growing emotional debt. The giver feels like they're owed some reciprocity, some care back that just never arrives. And that leads to total emotional exhaustion. I mean, there is literally nothing left in the tank to give. So what's the final logical step? Departure.
And here we get to the core motivation, and it is a powerful act of self-preservation. See, for the person who is completely burnt out, staying in that relationship feels like they're just waiting around to be hurt even more. So leaving first becomes a defensive move. It's a way to control the ending and stop any more pain from coming their way. Now, this next part is really the heart of the matter. We almost always assume that cutting someone off is an act of rage, right? But the reality is a totally different and much, much quieter emotional state. I mean, think about it. We picture this final act as being full of drama, confrontation, and yeah, a lot of anger. But that's just a complete misreading of the situation. By this point, the emotional energy it takes to even be angry, that was all spent a long, long time ago.
What's left isn't fire. It's just nothing. It's indifference. The person has moved way past anger and hurt and has landed in a place of emotional emptiness. They just don't care enough anymore to fight, to argue, or to explain. The truth is, the connection was severed inside their head long before the communication stopped on the outside.
This quote just nails it perfectly. The silence that you experience from the other side, it's not an angry silence. It's the sound of indifference. It's a signal that the emotional investment has dropped all the way down to zero. So, and this is the crucial point, they are not trying to hurt you, they are trying to stop hurting themselves.
This just highlights the huge gap in perception, doesn't it? From the outside, it looks like an attack, a calculated, aggressive, maybe even malicious act. But from the inside, for the person who's leaving, it feels like a retreat. It's not a loud declaration of war. It's a quiet, exhausted surrender. So how do we start to put all of this together? Well, we really need to reframe this final act. It's not an assault. It's a quiet, personal resolution to a conflict that has been long and incredibly draining. So, let's just quickly run through the big takeaways here. First, this whole thing is an act of self-preservation, not malice. It comes from a place of deep, prolonged emotional exhaustion. The real driving force here isn't anger anymore, it's indifference. And ultimately, it's a quiet, internal decision to simply stop investing energy where there's no return. And when you really look at it through this lens, the entire act just transforms. It stops being about abandoning someone else, and it becomes about refusing to continue abandoning yourself.
It's the absolute last resort, when that emotional bank account isn't just empty, but is deeply, deeply overdrawn. And that leaves us with one last kind of provocative thought to chew on. When someone reaches a point of such profound burnout that their only option for survival is to silently walk away, should we really view that ending as a relationship failure? Or is it actually a quiet personal victory for the one who finally chose to save themselves?